Hello world, my name is Tim Roswick and this is Fred, and today we're going to talk about top indie genres that are viable in 2020. First off, I just want to say I'm just a dude on the internet and you should not look, you got to do your own research, right? You got to understand all of this stuff, and what I'm about to say is my opinion. It is in no way the end all be all of the ultimate thing that you should do. If I say a genre that you're not working on, I'm not saying you should drop your project and abandon it. I'm not saying this is the only way to make money in indie game dev. It's definitely not. Some of the best games come from crazy perspectives that you never possibly could imagined, right? So the whole novel idea and the distinct idea and actually making your own thing, you know, who knows? But what I'm looking at is genres that consistently can make money, genres that people pay for, genres that don't have so much competition in them that it's hard to even get noticed, genres that people aren't just like another one. So I've been doing a lot of research. I've been doing a lot of research on Steam. I'm doing a lot of stuff because I want to build an indie game business, right? I want to build an indie game business that supports me financially. I've made thousands of dollars with my indie games, but I've worked years on my indie games, and I can't live full time on my game dev income at the current time because it's just not high enough. I want to get there one day. So that's why I'm looking at viable genres. So I want to talk to you a little bit about my philosophy, the kind of games that I'm going to be focusing on, the kind of games that I'm going to be building, because I pay attention to this stuff. I live and breathe game dev. This is stuff I'm doing every day, and I watch all this stuff. I look at this stuff. I listen to top people in the industry, and I want to share my thoughts with you. So first up, I want to say that consumable games, I want to talk about this a little bit, because this is the first thing that I want to kind of paint a picture for you of like what I'm thinking in terms of what's viable financially. Maybe we should define that first. When I say viable, I don't mean can you make this game? I don't mean is this game possible to do? I mean, is it in my opinion a good choice for a commercial game financially? If you don't make games for money, you can make whatever the hell you want. You can make whatever the hell you want anyway. I'm just doing it on the internet. You shouldn't necessarily take advice from YouTube videos. Like, it's, you know, you got to do what you got to do. You got to do what's best for you and your business. But for my business, here's what I'm thinking. Consumable games for a long time have kind of declined. They've declined in sales and popularity, and sometimes you even have these consumable games that just, they seem to do really, really well. And I'm going to break them into two categories. I'm going to break them into AAA categories and break it into indie categories, because those are two very different things. And I think two very different things is going on there. Number one, the indies, a lot of times you'll see these indie gems that are beautiful. They're amazing. People want to play them, and you see them on streams. You see Markiplier playing, you see Jacksepticeye, you see all these big YouTubers playing these games. But then when you actually look at the review numbers, because that's the best way that we can really estimate sales on something like Steam, numbers don't add up. It's like, yo, this game got 5 million views in 2 days, and it's got like 50 reviews. What's going on there? I haven't released my revenue for Phylophobia yet. I launched a game called Phylophobia: The Fear of Love. It's a platformer. It's a consumable game. I launched it February 10th of this year, of 2020. I got played by GT Live, Matt Pat from GT Live. Hundreds of thousands of people seen that game, and I have the actual data from that game, and I can tell you that video had very minimal impact on my sales. That's depressing. That sucks, right? How do you get 100,000 people to look at something and like none of them buy? And it's because consumable games are being consumed, but they're being consumed at a mass scale. When someone plays your game live on stream and the game is going to be the exact same for somebody watching it, there's really no point for them to buy it anymore. Let's be real here. If somebody plays through a story game on stream and somebody watches that from start to finish, why would they play that game? If the only point of that game is a story, or it's a consumable content, and they know what's going to happen, there's not a lot of incentive there. And I know just from, you know, personal anecdotes, like watching my girlfriend Nicole, or even me, like I watch a bunch of games that I don't buy. Resident Evil, I've been watching those games. I'm never going to buy those games. I like watching them, but I don't buy them. Nicole does it all the time. She watches YouTubers play various games. She's like, oh, I just was interested in the story, so she watches it as video content. So consumable games have been losing their audience for a long time because they get kind of lost in this content creation deal, right? Like people stream them and then that's their story. That's it. That's what they are. They get consumed on stream, and the problem is that gets broadcasted to free for everybody to watch, and then there's really no interest. At least, again, this is my opinion on how things work and just based on anecdotal evidence. Then you got the indie guys, and people are like, what about God of War? Okay, that's a story game. Tim, that did well. Yeah, well, here's the problem with games like that. Games like that, The Last of Us, God of War, Halo, probably. Halo has like competitive multiplayer and stuff to it, but like these games get funded by first parties to sell consoles, right? Their production value is insane. Their marketing budget is insane. Like when Sony steps behind a single player title of that scale and that magnitude, that's a console seller is what that is. 100%. Like you think, oh, well, they did well. Yeah, they did well because they had the entire platform and the entire studio pushing towards them. I'm not saying they're not good games. They absolutely are. But it's kind of, this whole conversation assumes that you're making a good game, right? Like you've got to make a good game by default to succeed in any area. People say, oh, you just make a good game, it sells itself. No, but a good game is required for something that's going to sell at all. Like you're going to have a hard time selling a shit product, like in any business, in any industry, right? So I just wanted to separate those two out because like you've got the console sellers, which is what I call them. They're funded first party titles. And generally, yeah, they do well because they're designed to do well to sell consoles. They're usually first party exclusives and stuff like that. Then you got the indie games that just like, they seem like they did really well, but they didn't. And it just kind of sucks. So in the future, I don't see myself making consumable games. And I wanted to throw that out first before I get into genres, just because I don't think I have a way of like looking at every genre. There's plenty of genres that are viable that are not on my radar, right? So this is more of like genres that are viable that I'm paying attention to right now. And I think the first one of those is deck building games. Deck building games are huge right now. If you pay attention to the games media, streamer audience, YouTube audience, that kind of thing, the people that are streaming games, which I'll get into a couple of my favorites too that I think you should pay attention to later on in this video. But if you pay attention to some of these indie game channels, right, where they play a new game every day, dude, the amount of deck building games and card games are insane. And a lot of these games are doing really, really well. I keep looking at them. Like a lot of them are like roguelite-y, procedural games. A lot of them are bringing deck building or card mechanics into other genres. A lot of them are experimenting. Of course, one of the things to take into account is like if you're going to make one of these games, it's going to take you months or years. So is it going to be viable by the time you get done? I don't know. That's a whole nother deal. The second one I think is anything procedural or roguelite, which actually I talked about. There's a lot of hybrid deck building roguelite games going around. And, I think those are really interesting to watch. I really, I've posted about this a bunch on the channel. I really believe in procedural games. I really believe in non-consumable games that are different every time you play them, games that an audience can have a different experience as the streamer can. Games that like some people call infinite situation generators, right, for YouTubers. Because the idea is that like, if you can build a procedural game, not only can a streamer and a YouTuber play it, and then the audience can play it too and have a different experience, but, and here's the key here, the streamer and YouTuber can have different experiences every time they play it. So when they finish God of War, or they finish a consumable game, Phalophobia, for example, when they finish Phalophobia, do you think they're ever going to play Phalophobia on stream again? Do you think they're going to be like, yeah, let's play that again? I just played through 100 levels of misery, and now, yeah, let's do that again. It's going to be the exact same, but we're going to do it again. No, they play games over and over that are different every time. They're non-consumable. So it actually ends up getting you more views, right? Because the streamers and the YouTubers and the influencers, they play that stuff more than they would normally. And not only that, but then the watchers can actually get different experiences out of it. So roguelikes, I think, when I say roguelike, I do mean a resurgence of turn-based, grid-based games, but I also mean roguelite in the fact that like any game that can take not even necessarily permadeath, but some sort of like procedural run-based type of game I think meta progression is a big part of that, even though that's not part of the roguelike formula per se. But the meta progression, basically the progression systems when you die, so you don't like lose everything, I think are a big part, just to be respectful of people's time and just keep them engaged and all that stuff. The third type of viable genre I think is tactics type of strategy games. And if you're noticing, a lot of these fall under the strategy category. That's partially my bias, because I want to look at strategy games, and I'm probably paying attention more strategy games than other stuff. But it's also like, I think strategy, and even though it's a really broad term, I think it's generally a better genre to go for, in my opinion, because I feel like strategy by itself usually means that you are generating situations, right? You're generating new ways to deal with stuff, and I think that by default is just a better formula for a commercial game in today's day and age. So tactics, if you saw, I released a video about barn battles, which we're changing the name to Battle Barn Tactics, and that's going to be an upcoming Steam game that I'm going to do, because I think tactics are super viable. I will say this, I have probably a dozen web games up online, and this, again, this data isn't really like, oh my god, this means it's gonna make $1 million. No, it's literally like just anecdotal shit that I've read on my own analytics. But out of all of my games, out of the dozen or so games that I have online, Barn Battles, a tactics strategy roguelite, turn-based tactics strategy roguelite, has, I think it's like 5 or 6 times the playtime, the average playtime of my next highest title. So if you don't know, I actually put analytics in all my games. I keep track of where people play and how much they play and which levels they go to and how long they play for and all that stuff. And Ragtag Rescue, which was a game we did for Ludum Dare with Kindred Dev, which I have a video on Kickstarter with Kindred Dev. You should check that out. It's Kickstarter ending soon, and you should head on over there and fund it. But that game had a 2 or 3 minute average playtime, and at the high end it was like 10 or 12 minutes, but the average I think was 2 or 3, and that's over hundreds and hundreds of players, right? So like some play way more than that, some play for 5 seconds and shut it off, and then you kind of get this average 2 or 3 minutes playtime. My Barn Battles game had a 10 to 12 minute playtime on average, and for a web game I find that very, 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 very good. And I did check, and I did make sure that like it wasn't like 5 people that were throwing the average off. It is generally a higher average playtime than all of my other games put together. Philophobia does have a longer playtime, but it's a Steam game, so I don't, and people have paid for the game, so I don't feel like it's the same comparison as some of the free web games. Anyway, that's a tangent, but I found that interesting. Like when I literally look at data, when I literally look at, okay, I've made all these games, what do people do? How much time are they spending in all my games? And a tactics game that I made in a week has my highest play time out of all my games. And the third, I think, is like city building type of crafting games. Any kind of game that you build stuff in. I think Minecraft would be a perfect example, but I don't think it's, necessarily a good idea to run out and clone Minecraft. But generally games where you build stuff or you create a thing, a lot of people like to express their creativity. A lot of people like to share their stuff, and there's a certain sense of accomplishment that people get out of building things. It also inherently, when you have a building game or a city building game or some game like that gives you choices where you can choose what to build and you can choose how to lay things out, inherently it becomes a non-consumable game, right? Because you've got, like, most of the time you've got these situations that are different from last time you played it, and different people would make different choices and so on and so forth, so you end up with deviations of the same game that end up in multiple different ways and outcomes and all this stuff. So to summarize, deck building games, anything procedural / roguelike, tactics, city building / crafting / building type of games, I think those are the 4 that I've got my eye on. Like I said, I think there's plenty of other genres that are viable, and I don't think that you should drop everything you're doing just to listen to some dude and his beard man on an internet show. But I do think that for me, who wants to make smaller games and wants to be profitable and wants to build an indie game business, I've definitely got my eyes on these genres. There are people that I think you should pay attention to as well if you want to really get on the business side of games. You want to really think about indie game dev as a business. The three people that I really follow closely, I guess just the top three, are Ryan Clark, who did Crypto the Necrodancer, they're doing Industries of Titan and so on. Mike Rose, who's the publisher of No More Robots. They did Descenders, they did Yes Your Grace, all that stuff. And then Jake Burkett, which is he did the GDC talk, Surviving 11 Years Without a Hit. He just had his latest game, Ancient Enemy, come out soon. But all three of these guys share data, they share numbers, they share launch statistics, they share valuable info. And like I've shared my revenue on my channel, right? I really believe in that transparency, and I love these guys for sharing that stuff, so I definitely think you should check them out. I also think that if you're interested in indie game dev in 2020 as a business, you should be watching YouTubers and streamers who play indie games. You absolutely should. I watch indie game dev YouTubers every single day. Sometimes I miss a day, but literally, I'm not kidding, 5-6 days a week I'm watching YouTube videos from indie game streamers. I'm looking at these games, I'm analyzing these games, I'm trying to understand these games, I'm listening to what the YouTuber or the streamer has to say about these games, right? I'm understanding it. I got one of my favorite YouTubers, Nukrium, at the moment to play Barn Battles, and it was just a little dinky game that I played in 7 days, and they play, and he's got like 90,000 subscribers or something like that, and it was cool. It was cool to see his reaction to somebody that I watch over and over play all these different games and enjoy the game and say the game was fantastic. It's really cool to watch. So 4 guys that I think you should watch that play a ton of indie games. Splattercat Gaming is my #1. New video every single day on all kinds of indie games from all different genres. Wanderbots plays a ton of games and usually goes a lot deeper into each game as well. Some of the series of the games that he plays are 6, 7, 10 different hour-long chunks or half-hour-long chunks. So I definitely think you should watch him. Northern Lion plays a ton of different indie games as well. And then, like I said, Nukrium as well, in no particular order. Nukrium is a little more strategy based, but that's what I like, that's what I'm into. This is a long-term game, right? And that's what I just want to say. If you're watching a video this late in the video and you're still here and you're thinking about an indie game dev business, I need you to think of this as a long-term game. You can't get discouraged, man. You can't. To be profitable, I really believe this, and this is why I haven't gotten discouraged by like working 4 years on an indie game and not making what I consider to be a whole ton. Is I see this as the profitability point is my second, third, fourth game. I don't see it as my first game. I don't expect to get a hit. I don't expect to make millions of dollars off of one title. I expect to build a catalog of quality products that people can buy over time, and every time you make a new one, you've got all the other ones kind of long tail selling behind it. So you got to pay attention to this stuff, and I would really encourage you not to just be like, hey, Tim said this type of game works, so I'm gonna go do that. I really encourage you to watch some of these YouTubers, listen to some of these other guys that have had a lot of financial success. Pay attention to what they say, listen, like, and analyze it yourself, right? Go to Steam, look at some of these games, look at the review numbers, look at how many copies they're selling and that kind of stuff. Really like think about your own stuff, because you are the captain of your own boat, right? You're going to steer that shit wherever you want to go. And the problem is, like, a lot of people, you can't take someone else's path all the time. You got to take your own, and your path may not be the same as mine. And the crazy thing is, there could be 10 options and they can all be right. And there could be 10 options and they could all be wrong. And my way could be right, but your way could be right too, right? There's no right or wrong. There's no black or white. Sometimes there's a lot of options that are viable. That being said, I want to say thank you to the lovely people right here. They help me keep doing what I'm doing. They help me keep sharing my thoughts and stuff on YouTube. And if you want your name on this list, or you want a bunch of other cool stuff that I share on Patreon, I'm trying to do a better job of sharing more and more stuff, sharing more and more insights, tools. I got everything from reading lists to press lists to all kinds of stuff on the Patreon, so I highly recommend you check it out. It's patreon.com/GameDevUnderground. That's what keeps me going. But my name is Tim Roswick, and I will see you again tomorrow for another daily video.